They then ran onto the pitch, and we are seeing images like this one and this Twitter user saying that people basically preferring to wait at the stadium rather than to leave, because obviously this situation extremely fluid. We don't know how many people are involved.
The Paris Deputy Mayor is saying it's too early to conclude, but is also assuming that the attacks are coordinated acts of terror. Marcus, in terms of the other locations, have you got any further updates? So first of all, perhaps we can start off with the Bataclan situation, with what we're looking at now. There was a heavy metal band apparently performing tonight. Do we have any idea as to how many people were attending and how many people are still inside the building?
We do not have any information about how many people were attending the Bataclan, which is a concert hall in the 11th arrondissement here in Paris. Let's just talk our viewers through Annette what they're seeing here on their screens. This is a live shot up the Boulevard Voltaire in the 11th arrondissement of Paris. This vantage point is very close to the Bataclan concert hall, where there is a hostage drama underway, according to police. We know, Annette, or we have been getting reports that at least 15 people were killed at a shooting at the Bataclan. There's talk of dozens and dozens of hostages. One report from the Associated Press says that there are as many as 100 hostages taken at this Paris theatre, the Bataclan, which, as I say, is in the 11th arrondissement of Paris. We have a number of other active locations in Paris this evening. We understand that there has been a shooting at Rue Bichat, which is in the 10th arrondissement. There's talk of fatalities at that site. That was where we got the first reports from of a shooting. Then we have the Bataclan, the concert hall, this vantage point that we're currently looking at, where you're seeing a heavy police presence. Ambulances as well have turned out, and it appears that this situation, this location, is still very much active, because police personnel are still sort of hiding behind their police vehicles.
You certainly can see them there. Now, at this point, we apparently do have footage, Marcus, of explosions at the Stade de France earlier this evening, and I'm hoping at some point we'll be able to show the viewer that footage. There we go. This is amateur footage taken. Is that correct? That appears to be... It appears to be explosions at the Stade de France at this point. People fleeing, from we understand, from the stadium at the time of these explosions. Clearly this has been taken by a witness with a mobile phone. It's not very clear exactly where we are. Perhaps if we can go back to that footage there, because it looks like there's some action there in terms of those police special unit moving in. Obviously, this is a very, very tense situation. Local media is now reporting at least 40 people have been shot dead in these multiple attacks in Paris. We are being told that at least 60 people are inside the concert hall. And of course this comes in the wake of those shootings at La Belle Equipe. Earlier I spoke to our reporter Haxi Myers-Belkin, who was located just in front of the restaurant. Let's hear what she had to say.
Hello, Annette. So I'm on the Rue de Charonne, just 200 metres from where the shootout occurred, at a cafe, a restaurant called La Belle Equipe, which was of course full. It's a Friday night. Speaking to witnesses here who were in a restaurant just 3 doors down, they say they heard many gunshots, possibly from 2 separate rifles. They came out onto the street. There was panic. They looked to their right, just 3 doors down. They say they saw at least 10 bodies on the ground, tables broken, and the glass of the front of the cafe shattered. Real panic here. As you can see behind me, there are ambulances. Just moments ago, we saw people on stretchers being brought out. I'm not sure if you can hear behind me, but there are police officers, armed police officers, shouting orders. Earlier, we were here just 5 minutes ago. The police asked us to leave the scene, told us to get away from the street because, of course, the shooter is still on the run.
Right. Haxi, were you able to verify whether there was 1 or 2 people involved with the shooting? Because we're hearing conflicting reports, obviously.
Sorry, there's a lot of commotion here. I need to keep my eyes open and my ears open. Speaking to witnesses, I spoke to one man who is a tourist here. He told me that he knew a little bit about guns and that in his opinion there are at least two weapons used, one automatic rifle, he said probably a Kalashnikov, and also a pistol. Another witness I spoke to said that he was convinced that the shooter had reloaded the gun for a second round of shooting and that the entire event took place over 2-3 minutes.
Haxi, is there any indication at this stage whether they're evacuating the area, keeping in mind that clearly those people responsible for the shootings are still at large?
We've been told to move on several occasions. I'm not sure if you can see behind me, but there's a police cordon. We have only been in this street. We've been asked to move back at various points. You can hear sirens throughout the neighbourhood, but we've not yet been moved on from here. And as I say, we are only 150, 200 metres away from La Belle Équipe, is the name of the cafe where the shootout occurred.
Haxi, I'm sorry I let that siren go past, but in terms of what you're able to establish, have they cleared the restaurant at this point? Has everybody been taken out, including all of those who are injured?
Absolutely. The emergency services are right in front of the restaurant. There were ambulances, 2 ambulances, various police vehicles, and as I said, there are stretchers with people, with the injured and potentially dead on them, being moved from the front of the cafe into the ambulances you just saw arrive beside me.
There from Rue Charonne in the 11th arrondissement, just close to where that shooting had taken place earlier this evening. Again, for those of you just joining in, and just for a recap, we are getting reports of at least 30 people having been killed in multiple attacks across the French capital. This is the worst violence that this country has seen in decades. I understand that the US President, Barack Obama, has just been briefed at the White House. Francois Hollande, the French President, is apparently in meetings with the Interior Minister, Bernard Cazeneuve. For an update of the various locations, let me at this point turn to my colleague Marcus Carlson. We've got basically 4 locations, haven't we, Marcus? Let's just go through the first three, and again, just remind the viewers of what's been happening where.
Well, the location that we first got reports of a shooting at was Rue Bichat, which is in the 10th arrondissement of Paris, a very active neighbourhood, especially this time of night where there are lots of bars, very popular on a Friday evening. And we heard first of fatalities at that location at a bar called Le Petit Cambodge, as I say, in the 10th arrondissement. Secondly, we have a location at the Bataclan concert hall, which is on the Boulevard Voltaire in the 11th arrondissement. That is where these shots are from, or these pictures are from, these live pictures are from, as I say, from the 11th arrondissement and from Boulevard Voltaire. This vantage point is only around about 150 metres away or so from the Bataclan concert hall, where we do believe that there is a hostage drama taking place this evening. It appears to be very much an active scene still. As you can see right there on your screens, you're seeing police officers behind vehicles, a very heavy security presence in the 11th arrondissement, several ambulances and fire vehicles as well there. Then there's talk of a third location in central Paris, basically on the border between the 10th and the 11th arrondissement at Rue Charonne and at the restaurant La Belle Équipe. That is where Haxi Myers is at. And as she's been reporting, there's talk of at least 10 fatalities at that location, and a witness was telling her as well that at least 2 weapons were involved in that shooting, as I say, at Rue Charonne, on the border essentially between the 10th and the 11th arrondissement of Paris, a location.
Bataclan site, more shots have been heard. That's within the last half hour. They're saying there in the last 10 minutes. That was some time ago. So within the last half hour, there have been more shots fired at that location. Just to recap a little bit, reporters on Twitter talking about the fact that these were attacks carried out by people from a car using a Kalashnikov, shooting at restaurants in one of the busiest parts of Paris, the 10th and 11th arrondissement. There are bodies on the ground. We are starting to see some photographs showing bodies underneath tables, underneath blankets. I'm not going to show you those. What we see here is police activity and broken windows, obviously. This area is all very close to République, the Place de la République, where we saw those the march back in January after the attacks on the Charlie Hebdo offices, again very close to this area. It is still République, a shrine almost to free speech and Charlie Hebdo. The statue at the centre of that square is covered in graffiti saying that everyone must have the right to free speech. Now, we don't know what's happened here, but it is starting to look like it bears all the hallmarks of a coordinated terror attack. Now, that is speculation. We're not hearing that confirmed by official sources, but the fact that it is 4 different locations, clearly more than one gunman, and it would appear, according to BFM TV, they're reporting that a dismembered body was found close to the Stade de France, where we had 3 explosions earlier tonight. That is fueling speculation that there was actually a suicide bomber at the Stade de France. Now, France were playing Germany there at the time. The French President, François Hollande, was watching the game. He was removed from the stadium and the game continued. The people inside the stadium didn't know what was happening. At the end of it, they weren't allowed out because police had actually formed barricades around the stadium.
Emma, at this point I want to bring in France 24's Cyril Vanier, who's apparently just 200 metres from the Bataclan concert hall where at least 100 people are believed to still be held hostage. Cyril, what are you able to tell us from where you are?
Well, Annette, I'm standing about 200 metres away from the Bataclan, which is, I believe, as close as you can get at this stage. Police has obviously cordoned off to some extent the area. It's still ongoing. A few moments ago, I was closer to the Bataclan than I am now, but asked everyone to move back. Most people are now standing behind cars. There is clearly a fear here that anything could happen, even though the police are staying quiet on this and not sharing any kind of information. There is a heavy security and police presence. The Rapid Intervention Brigade, the French BI, has just arrived on scene, which is typical for this kind of scenario. They would do that. They're equipped to handle this kind of situation. And it's really a mixed scene, very much the 21st century. You have a huddle of journalists trying to film from afar, but there's really not very much you can see. Every now and then we can hear shouts occasionally, but we don't know where they're coming from. And you have a lot of curious bystanders, and their numbers are growing, in fact, over the last 20 minutes since I've been here. Many of them taking pictures, filming with their cameras, some of them speculating as to who's behind this. Several times already in the crowd, I've heard people saying, well, France is bombing Syria, so this is why this is happening. France, very much a country this year accustomed to I'm afraid, living this kind of scenario.
Well, it certainly is the case, Cyril, isn't it? Since January this year, you know, this city has been in a state of high alert.
Well, it has been. It has been, and authorities have been saying throughout the year, ever since the Charlie Hebdo attacks in January, that left over a dozen people dead. And even before that, authorities have been saying that there's very high risk of attacks against France. That is true across several Western European countries. The British intelligence recently was saying the same thing. And the French, certainly the people here, now feel that it is happening right in front of their doorstep, and quite rightly so. In a stark contrast to this, however, Annette, I have to say that as I drove through town to get to the scene, only less than, I would say, 500 meters away, some people still do not know what's going on and are still sipping their glass.
Which is extraordinary, given that we're sort of getting this information, and if indeed this is a coordinated series of attacks, this would be the worst violence that this country has seen since World War II. Certainly, we're just getting quotes here from Agence France-Presse, a news agency, that the French anti-terror prosecutor have taken over the investigation. That was sort of tally with what we're hearing, Cyril. At this stage, are they also intending to moving that crowd back? Because given the fact that those gunmen are still at loose, one would assume that evacuation of the area would be the next thing.
Annette, you raise a very interesting point, because this is one of the things that was learned. Among the many things that police forces in France learned and took away from the Charlie Hebdo attacks was how you deal with crowds, and including the media in this kind of situation. And the police were very forceful when I first got there, telling us to move back. It may well be that later on, as the numbers of security forces grow, they may be able to secure a wider perimeter around the area. I must admit, I'm a little surprised as to how close we can be at this stage. We're only 200 meters away. I would say about 10 minutes ago, police shouting at everyone, telling journalists to go home, which is a legitimate security concern for them. They want to see people as have on the scene, which of course is not feasible in a place like central Paris.
Now, I assume at this stage, and of course there's a lot of assumption happening here, because as the viewer can appreciate, this is very much a developing story, that just like the situation at the kosher supermarket in Vincennes, that clearly there is a specialist police squad in place where you are, Cyril. Are you able to give us any further details of what you're seeing in terms of the police presence and weapons and so on?
Unfortunately not. What I've seen so far is what I could say is I dare say the classic scenario and the classic kind of equipment that you would expect police to have. I'm now seeing soldiers walk up to me in camouflage gear, which I hadn't seen until right now as I speak to you, Annette. We're seeing soldiers in their khaki camouflage, one of them wearing his helmet, the other one not. They look for the moment in a what I would describe as a non-operational pose. They're walking towards the scene, but it speaks to what I was saying earlier, that I think as time goes by, the security apparatus is going to get thicker, with probably more layers of units intervening, or at least positioning themselves to be able to lend a hand.
Cyril Vadier reporting there from the Bataclan. Cyril, obviously we'll come back to you as the evening wears on. Clearly very much a developing story. At this point, let's just recap for those viewers who are just joining us. At least 40 people have been shot dead in a series of multiple attacks across the French capital. It's believed to be the worst violence seen in decades. US President Barack Obama has been briefed on the situation at the White House. We understand that the French President François Hollande is also in the middle of having a briefing with the Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve. We also understand that some 100 people are still being held hostage in the Bataclan concert theatre in the 11th arrondissement, which is a central location not far from...
I think it was definitely the restaurant that was targeted.
And Charlotte, just give me a sense of how big the restaurant is, and as you said, there were people outside on the terrace, is that right?
I'd say it was maybe 25 square metres, maybe 30 square metres, the restaurant size. Sorry, I didn't catch the other question.
And how many people was it completely full, and were there people outside on the terrace?
It was completely full. There was maybe 40 people, including outside. It's quite a small restaurant, but it was full. And the place opposite was also full.
That was Charlotte Brayhold, a young English woman who happened to be inside that restaurant at the time of a shooting. Again, recapping, at least 40 people have been shot dead in multiple attacks across the French capital. We have a hostage-taking situation still unfolding. A Bataclan concert theatre, which apparently holds up to 1,500 people. Apparently there was a